The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericaempowerment.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Welcome to today's Inspiring Women with your host, Deanne DeMarcco. On today's program, you'll meet the next business and entrepreneurial rising star. You'll learn from their successes, challenges, and life lessons to find out what has made them recognized in their fields. Now, here is your host, Deanne DeMarcco.
Welcome to today's Inspiring Women. I'm your host, Deanne DeMarcco, and each week our guests will give you tools, tips, and strategies to help you be more successful at work or in your entrepreneurial business. And this week, we're going to be talking about building successful and effective relationships. And we're also going to be talking about motivation and how to motivate the workforce that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Well, our first guest today has a wonderful quote, and she says, "People are attracted to individuals, businesses, or organizations that make them feel valued. Give people more value than they expect on a consistent basis, and they will be loyal, raving fans." And that's a quote by Joyce White Nelson, who is our first guest today. Now, Joyce is a Chief Relationship Officer. Joyce guides individuals and businesses and organizations in building professional relationships that are honest and authentic with lasting benefits of joy and success. She has a background as an educational leader for public schools. She's responsible for the introduction and implementation via the Department of Public Instruction of statewide positive behavioral supports and interventions. She is responsible for the creation of a 3-year strategic plan and manual to work with school systems in a step-by-step process for change. She led 8 schools with over 500 staff and students through a 3-year change process that resulted in a positive climate, increased curriculum engagement, staff satisfaction, and work safety. She's also been recognized by the U.S. Marine Corps for recognition during her contributions during the Operation Iraqi Freedom. So, Joyce, welcome to today's Inspiring Women.
Well, thank you, Deanne. I'm really happy to be here with you.
Yeah, so one of the questions I just got to ask you is, what brought you into studying this whole area of relationships?
Well, and that is really an interesting question because there's a big story behind that. So really, it was personal need. You know, I had a big challenge. As a child, I was really very isolated, and I really didn't have friends. And my friends were animals, pretty much. And I really didn't know how to build relationships. So I decided that I needed to figure that out. I needed a solution. So as many people do, I left home. I left home when I was 17, and I decided that I needed to figure this out no matter what. So what I decided to do was really just immerse myself in situations where I really wasn't comfortable. And so I did that. So I was in discussion groups, I traveled abroad, I explored diverse religions and cultures, and I lived in, a lot of variety of places in the United States and in Europe. So, and as a result of immersing myself and taking in a lot of different information, I found out about myself first, learned who I was, and then the outcome of that during that process was, I earned a lot of degrees and certifications, and then my focus became a positive focus of creating, a positive outcome. And, hey, who doesn't want that? We want positive outcomes. So I believe, I made a firm belief that people really want to feel good. They don't want to walk around not feeling happy. And even, Deanne, the Department of Labor, their statistics even agree with that. They say that the number one reason that people stay in a job is to feel valued. They want to feel recognized. They want that more than money or a title.
I definitely believe that. Definitely believe that. One of the things I thought was really interesting is that in the introduction, I talked about that you were the chief relationship officer and that you focus on this return of authentic relationships, which I think you called ROAR, ROAR, return on authentic relationships, which I actually think that's a pretty clever thing. But anyway, so tell us, what do you mean by authentic relationships?
Yeah. Well, in business, we're always talking about the ROI, right? Return on investment. Well, that quote that you read in the beginning, people in business are our hugest investment. That without people, we're not going to have any business. Right. So there are a lot of attributes of what defines sort of authentic. So like a few things from my observations and my study would be, well, an authentic person is maybe someone they're not afraid to show who they are. They're out there and this is who I am. Authentic people are also very approachable. Authentic people, they're very interested in others, if you've ever noticed that. They want to know about other people. Authentic people put other people at ease. They don't put them down. They make other people feel comfortable. It all sort of seems natural. Authentic people know their place in the world because they know themselves. That's really why. And then they put out a purpose to fulfill that place in the world, and they make an intention to do that. So the other part of the ROAR is the return. So now we're authentic. Well, how do we get a return on that in a business sense, Mm-hmm. So where is the return? Well, research is very strong in showing that CEOs or organizations that really show value to people and, they have ethical practices that it leads directly to financial payoffs in those organizations. And whether you're a for-profit or a non-profit organization, the same is really true because it's all about people. You can look at companies maybe like Starbucks. When they started, then their CEO sort of left for a while, and then they came back and reinvented themselves and brought back some of their original practices and regrouped. REI, Zappos. Here locally, we have a great grocery store called Festival Foods. Just a little simple thing. They have something called the 10-tile rule in grocery stores. There's tiles on the floor. Mm-hmm. Well, if you're within 10 tiles of a person, that's how you can teach these action steps. They are taught how to greet people. So everyone, if they're within 10 tiles, so it would be 10 feet of someone, they need to be greeted. Wow. So really it's a lot about the golden rule, in business. And I found out that through my practices that a lot of people just think this authenticity is maybe charisma or, sort of like some people have it and some people don't. Well, I found out that I was able to break those things down into actionable steps for people and measurable steps and teach it to them. So it is skills that can be taught.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, I think another one is Southwest Airlines really focuses on people and, and trying to value the customer. You're not just a person in a seat, but you're a real person.
Yeah, when you think about it,
I think they built their company on that whole rule.
Yeah, not just the customer either. That's the employees, well. It's the suppliers, it's the vendors, it's the colleagues, it's really everything because everything is made up of people. So you made a mention that there are some steps in that you teach people in building great relationships. Could you share a couple of those steps with us? Yeah, that'd be great. I think the first thing, which I did kind of allude to before, is we have to know ourselves. So you want to know what your own personal and professional beliefs are. So I'm going to tell you a couple of mine. So So I firmly believe in a collaborative environment to learn and grow with and for each other is my sort of motto. I really firmly believe that it's important to express appreciation first, not criticism. You know, we get what we're looking for. If we look for the good and if we're thankful for things, then that's what's going to return to us. And then I really also believe that everyone has a really positive value beyond what I can see. So that leaves me with a sense of wonder. Stuff is going to happen, right? Sometimes bad stuff happens to good people, so to speak, you know, or situations are kind of prickly. Well, if you pause and just think, well, what good could come out of this if we take that positive beyond what our first understanding is? And then I also believe in really authentic and transparent communication, which, you know, can be honest and sort of laying the cards on the table. And, you know, that leads right into that quote that you gave in the beginning. So those are the basic principles. And then there are some action steps, which if we might get into those action steps. But those are the basic principles that start with us in having great relationships. It's a mindset, and we have to know what we believe about it. Because if you don't want it, if you don't care about it, then it's not going to happen, right?
Yeah, well, I truly believe that. You know, and we talk about communication all the time. You know, I can't change you. The only person I can change is myself.
Yeah.
And I have to know me first when interacting with somebody, because a sign of an effective communicator is someone who can be effective when communicating with somebody else. And the only way to do that is to know about myself, which is exactly what you're saying.
Right.
You know, you have to know yourself first.
Being authentic, you know, if these things that I named before, how will we know if we are? Well, it's going to start being reciprocated. And we're going to attract certain people back. And that will be the answer that we really are. Like you said about communicating, well, if the audience is understanding or if they're asking a lot of questions, then we know that, you know, we're getting to them. If it's kind of blank out there, they don't know what we're talking about, right? So we haven't communicated. We haven't met our purpose.
Yeah. So what are some of the challenges with being an authentic, building authentic relationships?
Yeah, and being successful at that. Well, I'm going to give a couple of the three right today of some top ones that come up really often with people. So
okay, we have about 2 minutes before we need to take a break, so just give you a heads up here. Go ahead.
Okay. So many people, they misunderstand that they think of building relationships as just meeting someone like a task that you check off on a sheet. Okay, I gave 5 people my business cards today. That's a task. That's not building relationships. It's really a process. So there's a misunderstanding that it's a process, not a task. Another challenge for people is this inner thing, not knowing their purpose or their intended outcome. So they don't know the reason why they're doing something. So they haven't found out what their own values are, or they haven't decided on a target. Let's say they were going to a meeting or meeting a new employee. What is their reason for that conversation? So they don't have that target. And the third thing is letting go. It's a very challenge for some people to let go of their own self-promotion or their own need. The opposite of that, the self-promotion is kind of obvious, but the other side of that is some people don't know how to receive. They can't accept back from people, so they sort of push people away because they can't accept that kindness back. No, you didn't have to do that, instead of just accepting it. So those are just 3 challenges. There's more, but we'll talk about those 3.
Yeah, I can really relate to that, especially I think women have a problem with when someone gives them a compliment just saying, thank you. They have a problem with that. We do have to take a quick break here. We come back. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how do you deal with some of those challenges. So this is Deanne DeMarcco at today's Inspiring Women. We are talking to Joyce White Nelson, who is the Chief Relationship Officer, and we'll be right back.
It's It's your world. Motivate, change, succeed. VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com.
One of the biggest challenges facing corporate America today is accountability. Lack of accountability results for more than 50% of all business failure. Lack of responsibility, strategy, and follow-up are just some of the culprits that kill accountability. Deanne DeMarcco knows firsthand how to drive accountability in your business or organization. Deanne DeMarcco is one of the most sought-after advisors and coaches in corporate America. Companies that use Deanne as their company coach often call her their Chief Accountability Officer. Your company or business will grow with Deanne as your CAO. Call 866-91-COACH or email Deanne at DeanneDeMarco.com for more information.
Become a sponsor and position your company to the fastest growing market segment, the women's business market. Your organization has the opportunity to be positioned front and center to the women's business market by becoming a sponsor of today's Inspiring Women with host Deanne DeMarcco. The show is broadcast weekly and features guests who are prominent and successful women business owners and influential executives. Businesses that fail to recognize the power of the woman buyer are leaving money on the table. Increase your market share to the fastest growing market segment by becoming a sponsor for today's Inspiring Women. Call 708-836-0118 for more information or email Deanne directly at info@DeanneDeMarco.com.
Friend us on Facebook to keep up with what's empowering the world. Voice America Empowerment.
You are tuned into Today's Inspiring Women with Deanne DeMarcco. We'd love to hear your questions and comments about our program. Please send an email to Deanne at DeanneDeMarco.com. That's DEANNE at DeanneDeMarco.com. Now, back to Today's Inspiring Women.
Welcome back. This is Deanne DeMarcco at Today's Inspiring Women, and we have got Joyce White Nelson on the line, who is the Chief Relationship Officer. And Joyce, just before break, we were talking about some of the challenges in being successful in your business relationships. And one of the questions that kind of came to mind was, you know, those difficult people in our lives, like a difficult boss or difficult co-workers. You know, what are some of the steps a person can take when you have to deal with these kind of people, and how do you build a successful relationship with them?
Right, and they're going to be there, you know, and it's going to happen. Sort of like the thorns on a rose, right? And like I said before, you know, we want to take a pause and have the mindset of think what good can come out of this. You know, so if we have that mindset, but beyond that, then what our action steps are that we can do is we want to look for common ground. We want to look for common maybe interests, look for other things. Where do they live? Where did they go to school? Maybe find some way to be helpful. Maybe be interested, know something about their family. We want to caution ourselves not to be offering advice before we're asked. It's a caution. So we're looking for common ground because what we want to do is build rapport. So you can do that in a conversation. You can build rapport. But there's some very other subtle ways that you can do that with your body language, and it's called mirroring. So you want to sort of modulate. You can choose to modulate your voice like theirs. If they speak rapidly, you might speak more rapidly. If they speak slowly, then slow that down. You can even, like if someone's crossing their legs when they're talking to you, you can cross your legs. You don't do it. You have to be very subtle. You don't want to be looking like you're a copycat. But if you do this, it's called mirroring. If you do that, the subconscious of that other person will say, they're kind of like me. You know, and just what people want people to be like them. Just like people like to hear their name, they want people to be like them. And it sends a positive message. And it sends the message that we're interested in them. You know, but it's an unspoken body language. So that's one of the little things I teach about building rapport.
But one of the things I also heard you say is that by finding out what the common ground is and the interests and being helpful, it's interacting with the person rather than saying, well, that person's a difficult person, so I'm going to ignore them. So it's actually making the steps to go forward and go talk to them.
Right. If we kind of think of every person as a pie, 100% of them can't be negative. There has to be something there that is a common interest. Maybe their child is, going to a college or hit a home run or is in a sport, so maybe we'd talk about that, not about something at work, hey, I heard, John got this. And then they think, oh, they care more about me than just this. They do care about this other part of my life.
Another question that kind of just begs the question here is, in the workplace, men and women communicate differently. Is there any tips on how do women build relationships at work without it coming on as harassment?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a whole segment on this, so I have actually a whole list of what I call contrasts between men and women. But we want to remember, whenever we talk about this, that, men are perfectly right to be more direct, while women are perfectly right to be more people-oriented. It's just a function, and even in the workplace. But that creates really a balance. So if we appreciate those things about people that are different, women are kind of more naturally nurturers, and this quality is good. It can enhance situations, and men are naturally more sort of like providers. They're more task-oriented, and they want to get the job done. Not to say that each gender doesn't have some of the other, right? Mm-hmm. But if we want to look at this as these two styles as a complementary, and I just want to pick out two contrasts here that I talked about today. I talked about in building relationships we need to ask. I'm going to talk about one. We have to ask questions. Well, men aren't the strongest there always in asking all the questions. They might not tend to naturally build that rapport that I've been talking about. But even if they do ask the questions, it's usually just target, get some information, right? Where a woman might ask a question more frequently, but for a couple purposes. They want to get information, but they also want to cultivate a relationship. So here's an example, like a woman might say something like, oh, so you're back from vacation. Now, a man might not bother with that because he'd say, yeah, it's obvious. They're back from vacation. Why do I need to spend time saying that, right? So, but these are some of the skills that can be taught to bring that in because that shows value, that leads into conversation, that builds rapport. So that's just one of the things, a contrast. But we want to just value those things and build. Not even look at them as strengths and weaknesses. They're just differences.
Mm-hmm. We hear a lot about networking, and I know you have a book coming out around being the perfect networker. Is networking something that people need to do in both the corporate environment? I know entrepreneurs need to network to help build a client base. But what about in the corporate environment? Do people in the corporate environment need to network too?
Yeah, absolutely. It is sort of a given. Entrepreneurs, they need, they're the decision maker. They need to collect their sphere of people around them, to help them run their business. So they have to ask a lot of questions and network, and then also build the clientele, but also their business partners and the people that they're with. So that is sort of a given. Now, in the corporate setting, a manager and executive, the principles still apply. You have a degree, depending where you are, you have some degree of responsibility or authority for staff and decision-making, but you usually have to answer to someone else, a manager, director, vice president, CEO, or board of directors. But it's an internal networking rather than an external networking more often. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So you're networking within the corporate environment. If we use networking meaning building relationships, networking, remember, is not a task. It's not handing a business card out. It's not how many people you know. It's how many people you've built those relationships with. So in the corporate environment, the people are going to come and go, but usually the positions stay there. So we need to renew those relationships or make relationships with new people that come into those positions. And, so we're always in a cycle of networking or building relationships in the corporate environment too. And, we want to find the ones that are mutually beneficial, that are reciprocal, that we can work with, work back and forth. Even it's, in entrepreneurs might call it referral partners.
Sure.
But in corporate world, we need to have partners too.
Sure.
And we can build that. We can build those relationships because things can happen certainly in the corporate world if we don't do that.
Yeah, that can be really true as well. So what is tell us a little bit about your book, The Perfect Networker. What's that all about?
Well, a perfect networker is, I was involved a few years ago. It was actually a social media networking site called The Perfect Networker. And it was a blend between what we know now as Facebook and LinkedIn. So if you took the best of both worlds, and I was like a live, real person that would meet people just like you would in a room of people and read their profiles and group them together and put them in a thread so they could talk to each other, and I was sort of a moderator for that. So I was a connector of people. So imagine if you went on LinkedIn and you actually had a real person greet you and say, hey, I know who you should meet. Come on over here. Get in this group, and go and introduce them and tell them the attributes to the group and say, hey, you guys talk a while. And then you leave and you come back and say, how's it going? And tell a little bit more about them. Well, I did that for 3 years. And then the man named Ken Rochon, who is the primary author of the book, invited me to contribute to that book, Becoming a Perfect Networker, succeeding one connection at a time. And there's just tons of jewels in the chapters. It's a chapter book, and there's like 14 chapters, plus sort of the 10 commandments kind of thing of networking, but a lot of dialogue about how to, how not to, and the whys, and what happens. So there's a lot in that book.
Sounds like that's going to be a really good book. So tell us a little bit about your company and the services you provide, and how do people get hold of you, and how do people get hold of this book when it comes out?
Well, the book is out, so it's going to be easy to get a hold of. So I'll tell you all those things. My company is Joyce Ventures, and we do public speaking, workshops. I love doing live workshops. I have personal coaching, professional coaching, free consultations. I do webinars and teleseminars, and I invite in guests also for those. And, if you're a person that maybe feels frustrated with, you don't have time for your family, you're kind of going crazy working, in your business all the time and not enough time, or maybe you're a person that thinks that networking is a waste of time, you don't have any returns on it. Or we talked about the corporate world. There's maybe a lot of sabotage going on, maybe in your business or in your office setting, and you just can't figure it out. Or maybe your advertising costs are through the roof, and you're kind of bleeding to death as a business. Well, that's what we help with, because we work with people and entrepreneurs and executives and helping them with systems and practices that works with building relationships, but that have measurable results. We teach people how to measure those returns on those strategies that they implement. And, that really affects the bottom line. Now, the book, The Perfect Networker, I'm offering for your audience here, for people that you can come to my website, which is joyceventures.com. And on the website, you can just go there to joyceventures.com consulting and order some free consulting, sign up for some free consulting time. And I would suggest to do that first, and let's have a chat. If they would like to go to the shop, they can just buy the book at the shop. Or if they'd like to get the book for free, I'm offering 5 free books for people that sign up for my discounted bundle of 6 consulting sessions. So, or if somebody did a workshop or something like that, we'd work that out. So.
Okay, and the way they get that information is to go to JoyceVentures.com. Is that correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And that's JoyceVentures.
.com. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, Joyce, our time is up. We need to go to a break here. I'd like to thank you very much for being on Today's Inspiring Women.
Thank you, Deanne, for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Just want to talk to you real quick about Today's Inspiring Women. You know, each week we try and bring you tools and tips and strategies to help you with your success at work and in your entrepreneurial business. And every week I try to end with a quote and an action for you. And the quote that I have for you today is actually by an actress and comedian, Lily Tomlin. And she says, "The road to success is always under construction." And I love that because that's really true. So your action for this week is to look at an area where you already are successful and see what else can you do to improve on that success. Anyway, tell others about Today's Inspiring Women. If you know of anyone else who could use tools and tips and strategies for success, tell them about the show. Email me if there's any particular topics you'd like to learn more about or any particular guests that you would like to see on the show. Anyway, this is Deanne DeMarcco, Today's Inspiring Women. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for joining us for this week's edition of Today's Inspiring Women. Please join host Deanne DeMarcco and other entrepreneurial and business leaders next Thursday at noon Pacific Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. Have an outstanding week.
Thanks again for listening to the preceding program brought to you on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit VoiceAmerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the preceding program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.